This is episode 59 of the Ownstream Podcast, featuring Theresa and Stephen.
Welcome to the Ownstream Podcast. I'm Theresa Scoba.
And I'm Stephen Shelley.
And we're really excited about this week's episode, Exit the Matrix. We're back in California, and we have a big week this week of releasing content and expanding Ownstream and launching a bunch of new media and content. It's super exciting. And we've been building up and we've been creating a lot of this content while we were in Costa Rica. But we're back and we're really in creation mode. And we've been really looking forward to this week. So excited to be with you this week. Our main topic in this conversation is going to be Exit the Matrix, which is about our first ebook that we've released on the Ownstream website. We've done a number of blogs and, of course, the podcast, but this is our first ebook, and we'll talk about it a lot more in a minute. But we really wanted to release a show about this because there's so much good content in this document, and we personally have had so much valuable experience with it that we really want to talk you through it. So this is one piece of media that we're releasing this week, but there are a number of things that we're doing, which I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, and to be clear, the content in the PDF is one thing, and it's just jammed with content. It's not a PDF. I keep saying it's a PDF, but it'll come to you in a PDF form, but it's an ebook. And there's just a huge amount of very specific advice, tips, tools, techniques, tactics, every way you want to put it. It's just filled with that. Today's episode is really our story, with each of these areas. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about our path. So we're excited because it's a great way for us to share more about our journey with you and be more open about that and hopefully connect with you more. But yeah, as Theresa mentioned, this is a big week for us because we're kind of taking our business Ownstream to a whole other level. Up until today, it's been the podcast, it's been the show, and that's been our focus, and rightfully so. We've been doing it for over a year now. This is our 59th episode, which is we're so proud of that. I mean, it's amazing. It's so fun. But now we do want to kind of take things up a notch, so to speak. And by and large, we've been interviewing other people. We've had the great benefit to talk to some extraordinary people. And what that's done is it's not only inspired us, but it's shown us so many ways to break free from this mainstream paradigm, this awful narrative, this awful story that we're told when we're young about how we're supposed to live, and that is just totally falling apart. It's crumbling under our feet as we speak. And the people that we've interviewed in this last year plus are responsible for that. They're heroes. They're modern day heroes. They are doing things differently. They're daring to challenge those old norms and create vibrant, powerful, new ways of living. And that's been our goal thus far. And so this Exit the Matrix document kind of combines so many of the resources that we've learned about, and it's our way of sharing all of this to you in one place. Also, one kind of interesting thing that we've noticed is a person will have kind of an opening towards, say, changing their diet or having a morning meditation practice, or, a big one is kind of starting an online business and really questioning the paradigm of I need to go to a 9-to-5 job or I eat the standard American diet. And what we've seen is that a lot of people with those openings could use support kind of exploring the same type of opening in all these areas of life. So a person who's a digital nomad, or a person who's a successful online entrepreneur and who no longer works a 9-to-5 and is creating and excited day in, day out to do their business. Well, this document will help you understand the ways that same principle of breaking out of this mainstream narrative can be applied in so many other ways. And that's something really, really exciting to us. And I think we've been the beneficiaries of so many wise guests on our show that have shown us there are no limits. There are literally no limits to how to live. So anyway, that's a little more about that. We'll get into that more in just a minute in terms of our story. But the other things that are kind of are changing this week and specifically Thursday, April the 12th. So if you're joining us after that, which of course you are, because this is the day that this podcast goes live, our newsletter has changed. It's now called News for a New Earth. And we're super excited for this. We used to do a weekly tip-off email, and to be totally frank, we haven't done that in a few weeks. We've been traveling. We haven't had a lot of bandwidth to create that. And the bottom line is we just weren't that excited about that idea. And so we've been thinking for weeks about how we could change that and what would excite us, what would we get really, really into doing. And so that's what we came up with, News for a New Earth. And so this will come out twice a month, and we're not going to tell you when because we don't know. We don't know what days this is going to come out or what days we'll release it. It's really going to be released when we have enough information to share. We think it'll be about twice a month. It could be, the 15th and the 30th. It could be the 12th and the 19th. It just sort of is to be seen. So that is what that's all about now, and it's really all to us. One thing we've always thought of Ownstream as being is the news you actually need, the information that actually matters, that's actually relevant to your life. So the mainstream news is, of course, mostly not about that. At least in our view, it's a large, big kind of distraction. It's very negative. It's very toxic, and I think it sort of feeds on fear. And what we want to do is inspire, give hope, help people transform and accelerate and expand. And so that's what this newsletter is about. It doesn't come out at a specific date or time, or it might, there's no promise as to what it's going to look like week in, week out, there's nothing kind of set about it necessarily, and we think that's by design. We don't need that much news. There's not that much news. It doesn't need to be every day. It doesn't need to be on the 15th and the 30th. It'll come out twice a month, and it'll be plenty. There are other ways to interface with us more regularly, but that's what that's about, the News for a New Earth. And if you want to sign up for that now, we certainly welcome that. You can go to the sign up button on our website and click through and sign up. The other big thing is our Patreon page. Patreon.com/Ownstream. So many of you may know what Patreon is, but it's a way for you, really you, people who are listening to the show, who have followed us, who love Ownstream, who really believe in us. Maybe you've met us in person or you feel like you know us from hearing us talk every week. But Patreon's a way for you to support us. And it's not a place where, we're expecting triple-digit, thousands of dollars. It's really just a way for us to open up to more abundance, more connection with you, more support. We put this out every week, and if no one gives us any Patreon money, it doesn't matter. We're still going to do it. So it's not about paying or covering cost as much as it is about embracing this new model of economy that's forming, which is really about creators creating valuable content like the Ownstream Podcast, and you, the listener, supporting it through small donations. And I think we have as small a gift as $5 per month on the Patreon website as a means for you to support what we're doing. It will go towards creating our media. It'll go straight into covering our costs for the podcast. I think the podcast is about a 10 to 12 hour a week job. It's more than that.
I think it's more.
Well, I do a lot of the work with, we have a team. Theresa does a lot of the social media consulting, the writing. Theresa does a lot of that. We kind of share the writing of the post. We put a lot of time into those posts. We really, really consider that we want these to be an essay about this person. We want to elevate them and magnify them and turn them into heroes because we really think they are.
There's outreach and connection to guests, the recording, the follow-up, and all the promotion we do and all the writing we do to really present and explain and provide context and provide support for our guest.
Yeah, so there, it's a good amount of production, and whatever you can support us with will go towards that. I haven't monetized how much it is per week to create it. No. It doesn't matter to us. We've put on the website, on the Patreon site, that we're hoping for $500 a month. But if it's more, if it's less, it's fine. We're not kind of looking, it's not like there's a goal or a fundraising goal. My 501c3 hat almost made it onto my head there. Where we can need a goal. We don't have a goal. It's not about that. It's really a way for us to be more connected with you and for you to express appreciation. Expressing appreciation for what you love and for what you find valuable is a tremendously useful tool for you. Because once you do that, more of that comes, more of that expands, more of that's created in your reality. So if you love what we're doing, we hope you'll support us. Patreon.com/Ownstream. The last little technical announcement is, and this will be more on this later, is that we're going to start doing monthly webinars. That'll kick off at the end of the month. And those webinars will be a monthly thing for now, where we focus on a couple of the topics that we're about to dive into from Exit the Matrix. It's a way for us to go into even more detail and really to interact with our listeners, the people who've read the PDF or the ebook and who have questions. It's a great way for us to interface with you. And if you have suggestions, I mean, there's so many resources in this. There's probably 10 times more out there. We certainly hope you'll share those with those, and those webinars will be a great place to share additional resources as well. So that's a lot of kind of prelim. It's a big week for us. I hope you understand. This has been a labor of love thus far. It continues to be that. But I think we're sort of stepping things up into a little more of a next level in terms of the business of Ownstream and finding ways to grow and expand, because everywhere we go, we meet people who want this content, who are so excited for what we're doing. Every time we meet somebody who's heard an episode, they're so into it. So this is a way for us to kind of create mechanisms for that expansion to flourish. And that's exactly what we've done. We hope you will support us. Of course, everything can be found at ownstream.co, and that's enough about that. So let's dive in. I'll hand you back to Theresa, and we'll get things started.
So Exit the Matrix. This is this ebook is something that we've been thinking about for a long time. We actually started brainstorming it when we were traveling in the van. I think it was to and from Sedona last year for one of Bentino's retreats. And we started brainstorming. We've had almost 60 conversations to date. Some of those have been us, and started to brainstorm what tools we can pull together. What have we learned from our own experience and the conversations we've had that we can give away to our listeners, to the followers of Ownstream, to people who are really seeking a more free, empowered life. Like, what are some tools, some really actionable items that we can put together in a short document that people could have and use today? And it was great because we were having this conversation. This stuff just flowed right out of us. It was so easy to come up with sort of what the top, 7, 8, 9. We were thinking, and it ended up being 8 that we included in the PDF document. But that we, things you could really do today, this week, to start pulling yourself out of the matrix. And what do we mean by exit the matrix? We talked a little bit about it already, but basically we talk a lot about this on the podcast, but there's a mainstream story we've been told in the Western world and in other parts, as we learned on our most recent podcast with Rodolfo Carrillo. Also, it's not just the Western world. There's kind of a mainstream story about how to live. And as Stephen said, it's a very narrow, singular, in many ways, like restrictive, small way to live your life. And it's one way, that's often told about how to live your life. And very true to form to the movie The Matrix. I think we really believe this is a program that's being told. It's not reality. So how do you access your true north? How do you access your own path, and how do you create your own path in your life? And that's really what this document's about, is about getting out of the program that you've been told and finding your own way, finding your own stream, finding what's within you that wants to come out, but may have been sublimated by this program that you've been told, right? So anyway, we created 8 categories of things to do. There's the document itself is full of resources and directions. What we wanted to talk about on this podcast really was about our experience with these 8 things, because these have all been extremely powerful, transformative tools and experiences in our life. So let's dive into them. Sound good? So the first one, which, I thought we led with this one because it really kind of leads it's a lead off for all the others. It's one of the most important and most impactful of the 8. Is changing the program, choosing a new set of inputs, and eliminating the old ones. This is huge, and I'll just lead off with my experience and then turn it over to you, Stephen. But, I used to, when we lived in New York City, I mean, that's an input in itself. Like, we lived in New York City, and for many years, my whole life was dominated by politics, the news, and actually just like kind of a lot of negativity around me, I guess I would say, So I worked in the social justice field. I went to law school. There's a lot of importance given to reading the New York Times, listening to NPR, if you watch TV, watching CNN, whatever, really a lot of political input, knowing what was going on in politics, being able to report out what was in the New York Times that morning, and just really being fed by that. I also listened to, also was surrounded by people who were angry about things. I was in the activism world for a long time, just really angry about a lot of things happening in the world. And, what did that do? That made me feel like an angry person. It also made me feel like the world was a very limited place. It was a very controlled place. There wasn't a lot of potential for change. And I gave my power over really to people in government in a lot of different ways. And, my belief now about the news, and it's funny, I came from that world, and now I don't watch or read or do anything with the news at all, which is the mainstream news, the mainstream political news. When I say the news, I kind of don't know what's going on in the world. And many people might think I don't know what many people might think, but actually for me, what I've done instead. So we talk about changing the inputs. I don't watch the news anymore. When we go into our family member's house and the news is blaring, I feel myself tense up, And our belief about this, honestly, my belief about the politics is it's a total distraction. It's a total show. The people in government aren't really who's in power anyway. And it's one version of what's happening on the planet. While there's this other story, which is what we're trying to tell with Ownstream, of massive awakening and uprising and positivity and people living to their fullest potential and discovering who they really are, which is, parts of God, parts of the infinite creator with infinite possibility to create your own life. And that really what's out there is massive sleep and delusion, that all of this is real and what life is about, and so really for me, that's a big distraction. I'm part of creating a new earth. I don't want to look and get angry about and attached to what the old earth is about. And honestly, when you do that, when you get angry, you just help strengthen those things. That's the way the law of attraction works. It's if I'm getting angry about something, I'm reinforcing that in my own life, the presence of that in my own life, and the presence of that in consciousness for everyone. So what I did to change that is, I stopped watching the news. That was huge. Or reading anything about the news. I changed all of my feeds. I used to get notifications from CNN, and basically what those would pop up is bombing here, shooting here, actions Trump was doing that could anger a lot of people, whatever. And I just stopped those. I also tweaked my Facebook feed to all the people I know who are working in consciousness and doing, helping the world, doing very positive things, raising consciousness. And now the only people I get in my feed, it's 3 or 4 people I see in my feed all the time. But those are the main people that I see, but I see I can't even tell you, it's only voices of radiance and light. And the way I feel when I go into Facebook is so excited and not contracted. I don't see the feeds of people or mainstream news in my feed at all. I also, we talk about this idea of inundation. We talked about that with Benita on Benita Conde and her podcast, because she was a coaching client of ours, and we did a lot of that with her. When I remember when I was on the subway and I was trying to change my inputs, I would be listening to Bentinho meditations or Abraham Hicks, or voices of telling me that I am powerful and that I am light, and I would carry that with me all the time. So really, everywhere I would go, and I would be kind of seeing darkness or seeing a lot of anger around me or fear, I would be listening to these wildly abundant and positive messages around me. And the other thing, and then I'll pass it to you, Stephen, is changing the people you spend your time with. That was a big one too. I had, it wasn't necessarily that they're just like friends in my life or people in my life that are negative. and kind of like feeling that when I would be around them, and kind of just deciding that like I didn't need to be around that. I don't want to be around that. I love this person. I care about this person. I can try to support them in a lot of ways, but that's not who I want to be spending my time with. I want to be spending my time with people who are empowered and seeing the positive transformation in the world and wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah, boy, the change for me was it's best summarized by my kind of news reality. We stopped watching television years ago. We got rid of our cable package many years ago, 5-6 years ago minimum. And so we haven't watched like daily news in a long time. So much of the news or updates about current events and what was happening would come through social media. And within the period of like 48 hours, all of my feeds transformed from like Trump to God. It was so amazing. And I grew up in a newspaper. My mother ran a small town newspaper, and that's a very different reality than what we're dealing with now, with the television and the 24-hour news cycle, which is, oh my God, what a toxic circumstance that is. Like anybody needs 24-hour news. And yet when you walk into many of our relatives' homes, that news is on TV, like first thing in the morning, and it's kind of ripping throughout the day. You go to any doctor's office, a restaurant, anywhere, and there's going to be, in many cases, news preaching negativity and fear. So what we did in the document is, in the book, is list all of these other things that you can connect with. Upbeat, positive, evolutionary-minded resources. Not just Ownstream, but we do obviously feel like we're part of that. But there's so many more, and we feature many of them. One thing comes to mind right away on YouTube. There's this marvelous YouTube channel. This couple is living in a van, and they travel the country, and they talk to other people living in alternative homes. And we feature them in our ebook. And what a useful thing to know. Like, somebody's living this way. Here's exactly what it's like. This is what their expenses are per month. Like, millions of people could benefit from that information. Like, literally millions could change their lives if they were excited and knew about that. So that's kind of what this is part one, is to take this web of distraction and eliminate it 90%. And then with the rest of the 10%, turn it into like the information that will help you grow and expand and evolve. And all of those resources are listed. It covers everything. We have great athletes. We have great photographers, like beautiful images. What's more inspiring than that on Instagram? There's like so many great accounts to follow on Instagram, on Twitter. We cover all the major social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Those are the main ones. And it's just about inundating yourself with positive, helpful information. And for me, it's been a huge difference. The interesting little sidebar there is that it's addictive nonetheless. I mean, relationship to social media still has to be looked at. We've done a lot of that recently, taking it off our phones. Like, you should absolutely take all those social media things off your phone, in my view. You don't need that much distraction. You don't need that much invasion into your life. I took email off my phone. I check it when I can check it, and I check social media when it's relevant and it makes sense to do so, but it's not nagging me in my back pocket. So that's another thing to do, is to take it off your phones, in my view, and to limit the amount of exposure. And when you are exposed, have it be really, really good stuff. So that's number one. Number two is develop a daily meditation practice and morning routine. And this is extremely important. Talk about maybe the most helpful input is source, is connecting, is being aligned, is understanding that feeling, and in training yourself more and more to that. And, recently, for example, I've had a morning routine for 18 years. I don't even know, like a long time. It's changed, it's evolved, it's moved, it's gotten smaller, it's gotten bigger. It's constantly something that is changing. It's not necessarily written in stone, but it is something that when I wake up in the morning, I'm immediately engaged with that. And in the ebook, we talk a little bit about our current routines, which could change next week, but it's helpful to kind of get a snapshot as to kind of how we approach it. They're very similar, but starting your day off by kind of prodding your engine in a positive way is extremely helpful. For me, I have noticed that if there goes a few days when I don't do that, a kind of darker cloud tends to appear in my world, more negative events. I can begin to think negatively or pessimistically. I start to worry. There's a lot more anxiety. Being aligned with Source, being aligned with the Creator is literally the only thing that matters. Yet, and I just said that to you listening to that, and yet a lot of my day can be spent navigating the perimeter of that or being outside of that box entirely. So I'm no expert. I've not mastered that, if you will. But I more and more every day feel that, and I know that's my place, and I come back to that. And it's directly due to that practice in the morning and to throughout the day getting a positive charge from some video that appears in, say, my YouTube timeline. If I'm eating lunch, I just had lunch out. I was working a little bit on this release, and I was eating lunch, and I zipped over to YouTube, and there were 3 fascinating videos I watched, each of them like 4 or 5 minutes each, all about kind of new scientific breakthroughs in the quantum field and energy. And it's like, this is so interesting. Like, it's so exciting to hear that. It's such an uplift. So anyway, that's my input on the morning routine.
Yeah, I mean, this is mission critical, and I will say, Stephen's had a routine for 18 years. Like, I have avoided meditation for a long time. I've been kind of consciously on a spiritual path for about 10 years. And a little before that, I was doing some yoga, but I just avoided meditation. I was so uncomfortable because what I felt like when I was doing meditation is I was just sitting, listening to my mind rant, because what I've done basically to deal with the fears and worries and obsessiveness and perfectionism of my own mind that has been conditioned by the program my whole life is I just do things. I busy myself. I think a lot of people do that who have a busy mind. Like they're just doing things, obsessive cleaning, obsessive to-dos, whatever. And I couldn't stand sitting in meditation because I would just be with my mind, and the rub is that the whole point is that, either you're going to stay in the mainstream story, you're going to stay in your mind, or you're going to find out who you really are. And you can't find out who you really are if you don't spend any time with who you really are, And so even though I would say that for years, like Stephen said, this is the most important thing to me is to get closer to God, to go within. Like I wouldn't do it because the truth was, no, I still thought that I had to be XYZ in the world and overwork and over be in relationships. And those things were more important to me. And, in the past 2 years or so, especially the past year, meditation has become a really fundamental part of my life. And going without it, the periods I've gone without it, I really feel the difference. And what I do is I identify again as a fearful human being who's scared of everything in the world, needing everyone's approval. I just go back to old patterns. The only way you're going to find out that the truth of who you are is this unlimited, vast potential of God, of the Creator. You have every power to create your life. If you don't get in touch with that, I didn't get in touch with that for years. What happens to me now in meditation is that I wake up in the morning often with a lot of mess in my mind about worry about the day, much less than I used to though. And that's because of meditation and other inputs. But I wake up and I need to go deep within to know who I really am. And the freedom and the natural state, my core frequency is freedom and joy and ease and power. And I can tap into that when I meditate. If I start rushing off on to-dos, that's what I'm going to think is my value and my worth in life, is how much I can get done, not who I truly am. And when I start from that place, anything is possible, So anyway, super important. And there's lots of ways to start. We talk in the ebook more about different ways you can approach your morning routine. It's not always just seated meditation. There's other tools. There's writing. There's walking. I've included. There's yoga, stretching. There's other things you can do in your routine. So really great. Number 3 is minimize and downsize, simplify and free yourself to be who you really are. minimizing. Whoo! This is like, again, like really getting, I'm saying, I'm talking about who you really are, right? Like we, in addition to the mainstream program we're talking about, we add on all kinds of stuff onto ourselves. And really like, that's all about, again, feeling like you're like a person who needs outside things to be okay with yourself. It's the same as like needing other people's approval, basically, is like gathering stuff to feel okay about yourself, and all of us have done this. I think it's like such a, we're fed voices of consumption and, value from external, from like, whether it's, cars or clothes or, whatever stuff. And I know that, every time we've shed things, this is, remember we'd have stoop sales in New York where we just basically would look around our apartment. I love this tool, it's like, look around your apartment and be like, what do I love this thing? Does this bring me joy? And if not, or, does this bring me great use? And usually that great usefulness will also bring joy. And if not, why do I have this? I have let clothes sit in my closet for years. And I still do this. Like I've minimized so much, but I've let clothes sit in my closet for years for the hope that I will still I will fit into them again or something. And that, if you think about that energetically, like it's just the energy that those things take from me, thinking about these things in my closet that I would hope I fit into again. I know a lot of people do this, but so the stuff that we have really does possess us. Our possessions possess us. I really believe that. They take away energy. And every time, from these stoop sales to times where we've, we lived in a van. We also, before that, we traveled around Asia with like very small, like school-sized backpacks, I'll just say, like just small backpacks and nothing else. We sold everything last year and moved into a van, and it felt so great to have everything we needed in that van. We have a few things at my mom's house. Like I honestly don't even remember what those things are. We could just get rid of them and I don't even think I would miss them. Like it is so freeing to just basically be who you are. I also spent, one summer just driving cross country by myself in a car. Like I slept in the car a lot. All I had was a tiny cooler full of vegetables that I would like chomp on the road, and like a few outfits and a couple books. And it felt great. And the real reason I think for me is that you are stripping down to your core essence. You're not invested in these things that take away from who you really are.
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me over the years with this has been a sentimental attachment. Like, what if it's given to me by a relative that I adored and who's no longer alive, or maybe it was worn by so-and-so, or maybe I got it on this amazing trip. I remember years ago when I used to work for a dance company. We traveled the world, and it was this great experience. But I remember we were in France. I bought this awesome, at the time, turtleneck sweater. It was gray. It just was great. It fit me great. It was beautiful. And after, a few years, the moss got a hold of parts of it and there started to be holes in it. I kept wearing that thing. And every time I'd wear it, I'd feel bad. Like, gosh, this thing looks ratty. It's not that nice. And I kept wearing it. Finally, I stopped wearing it and I kept it for a few more years in the top of the closet. I can't get rid of that. Maybe I'll get it fixed. Maybe I can take it to the tailor and get it fixed. Maybe so, but in this case, not going to happen. Anyway, so here's a rule of thumb I developed. Which is, if you live in a place like Southern California where the weather's basically more or less the same every day, a little margin here and there, but if you haven't worn it in 6 months, it's got to go. It's
a great rule.
You just don't need it. You're kidding yourself. You're singing some song and dance to yourself that you need this thing and you don't. Unless it's like, maybe once a year you need, I'm about to bullshit myself, but maybe you need a tux to go to some event. But if you do, then you just rent it. But if you live in a place like New York, you do need a heavy coat. But if you've got 2 heavy coats or 3 heavy coats, because this one's really good in the under 20 degrees, but you haven't worn it in 3 years, it's got to go. And the best story about minimalism that we've featured on our podcast is episode 3 with Tynan, where he describes. I get chills just even thinking about it, where he just looked around his house. He had this big house, and he finally realized, this is just a big fancy jail. I'm in prison in this thing. And that's what stuff is. It more or less holds you down. Some of it is useful. Some of it's worth keeping. Some of it, yes, if you love it, you love wearing it. Like the shirt and the pants I have on right now are super simple. They're not fancy at all, but I love putting them on. They look great on me. They fit me well. They feel good. But Tynan looked around, he realized like he had built a prison for himself. And he put an ad on Craigslist And he basically said in the ad, show up at 10 o'clock, whatever you can get your hands on is yours, and take it for free. He didn't charge a dime. And that next day was a madhouse at that house. And by the end of the day, there was a small pile of things left that he just threw away. There were some other things he did keep consciously. He chose some things to keep. But after that, he started traveling the world, and his whole life changed. And it kind of pinned on that decision. Every time I've done this, we've done it 2 or 3 times, it feels amazing. It is the most exciting thing. We used to have stoop sales in New York where we charge nothing for things. Just take it. Just please take it. And people would come and you could see the consumer mentality kicking in. Free stuff. Oh my God. I've got to text my friends. I've got to take as much of this as I can get. And you would see people walking away with a stack of books or whatever stuff that we'd put out on the curb. And I would feel bad for them. Like, oh man, I feel so bad that you're now stuck with these things that pinned me down for all this time. And yet they're obviously doing it out of their own choosing. But at the same time, like there's a big change to happen here with stuff and accumulation and your relationship to material goods, as Theresa said. And our basic rule is like, do we love this thing? If I'm going to buy clothes or if I'm going to buy something that I need, like everything that I own, I love it. The headphones I have on my head right now, I love these headphones. I love my computer. I love my watch. I love the shoes. I love my sandals, etc. Unless it's that, then don't get it and see what happens. You'll save money, but you'll really create so much mental room for creativity and for an entirely different relationship to stuff. And that is key. Number 4, get out of the office and into nature. So, okay, there's 2 types of people who work in an office. The people who want to, they love their jobs. They're excited to go to the office. And when I say office, I'm meaning like you commute, you go to a desk in an enclosed space and you work there all day. Some people love that. They can't wait. They love their job. More power to you. Don't change a thing. If you hate your job like I did for years, or if you're not like super jazzed about it, you're sort of lukewarm about it, think about changing it. That's a whole nother conversation. We don't want to necessarily get into that, but it doesn't need to be that way. My belief, and I think Theresa, you share this with me, is that each of us is here with a calling, a theme to express. And if you're not like super excited to do what you're doing on a daily basis, you're probably not expressing that. That said, if you do go to an office, either case A or case B, at least throughout the day, get out of the office and get into nature, because the office is kind of where all the forces of this matrix, if you will, have collapsed into one location. Mm-hmm. It's super stressful. Oftentimes it's very negative. It's all about money. Usually it's very sterile. I remember an office environment I lived in once. There was like 2 plants. And these 2 poor plants were like fighting for their life in this thing because it was fluorescent lighting. Their windows were way against the wall. Most of us worked in the middle of the space. It was not pleasant. So get out, get into nature. And to follow that theme, get out. If you're on your way to work, take a different route. Maybe take a different route through the park. Give yourself more time. Walk a different way home if you walk to work. Walk through the park. Walk just in places where you can be in the atmosphere of the natural world, because the natural world does not contain those toxic negative forces. It's a place of uplift, of a proper kind of natural pace, of inspiration. 9 out of 10 photos on EarthPics, if you go to EarthPics on Instagram, they're of the natural world. They're spectacular sunsets. They're wonderful mountain ranges. It's glorious water in the South Pacific. I mean, they are inspiring because we are made of the same stuff. We are that. That is a reflection of who we are. That natural world is an inspiration by design. So get out into that natural world. Experience that as much as you can. And if you work in an office, structure it into your day if you have to, but get out and get into nature.
Yeah, this is, again, it's really about getting back to who you really are. This is Ownstream, right? It's about finding your own path. And that's true. It's about, I know so many people, myself included, when I was in New York, that, that wanted to be in nature. We all wanted to be in nature. We all crave nature more, and I spent, so much of my time, basically like 100% of my time. My days look like getting up, being in my little box apartment, going underground under the subway, being in an office for like 8 to 10 hours, being back on the subway and being in my apartment again. It was like so contained and small. And, just, I remember like it was so much effort to get out of the city and get to a hike. And when we did, we felt, so worth it every time to get out to the beach or to a hike, and we've been adding, as you know, if you've been following us for a little while, just more and more nature to our lives, because basically we moved to California and then we recreated, because these patterns run so deep, these patterns of, kind of like that we cultivated by years in cubicles and years in offices, these work patterns, especially like we live like 5 minutes from the beach and we would go once a week, it's just, it's so, and so, we embarked on the period of repatterning last year in the van was all about kind of feeding our souls by being in nature. There's something that just like enlivens you by being in nature, wakes up another part of you, speaks to another part of you that wants to come out. And I would say like most likely the true you that is like craving to be awakened, and so, by kind of like shutting down our contact with nature, we often miss a lot of that. So there may be just another, that if you crave nature, it can be, find it where you can, it can be like a walk during your, lunch break, or getting away on the weekends, or taking a trip. There's like lots of ways, but feeding that just might awaken something else in you. So
I want to add one thing.
Yeah.
One thing I did years ago was during the corporate job I had, was I noticed about every hour the smokers would go down for an 8-minute smoke break.
Yeah, right.
I was like, wait a second. You mean to tell me I can't go down every hour? At least take a pause? I mean, like that's the one upside to taking the smoke break, is you get out of that space. Although in New York City, you're standing on, at least in this case, like Lexington Avenue, which is not much different than the office. But nevertheless, so what I started doing was about every 2 hours, I would go down and take an 8 to 10 minute break and just walk around, move the body, get out of there. So anyway, that was like a little thing I noticed years ago. If you're wondering about, I can't get out of the office that much. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you always can, like it's, do you really want to? Are you willing? That was the same for me with my meditation practice. Like really, I don't have 5 minutes in the morning to meditate. Like I convinced myself I did not have 5 minutes in the morning to meditate. Like that's in my, and I did that for years. It's total insanity. I ate my lunch at my desk all the time in front of a computer, which to me is like, just grosses me out now. I did it every day for years because I didn't think that I could walk downstairs and have like a 10-minute lunch outside. Like if that's happening to you, try to breathe into the space that more is possible, because I did it for years, and I was chained to my desk for years without believing that I could do that. So it's, this could really add a lot to your life by taking a chance on this. And in the ebook, we provide a lot of suggestions about ways that you can incorporate this into your life that are specific and varied. Okay, so number 5, change what you put in your body. Eat more plants. We've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast if you've been following, and this is a huge change in our lives. And again, about inputs, really. What makes your body feel good? What makes your soul feel good? And there's so much, in my own life, I grew up eating, I was just talking about this earlier with someone, I grew up eating like a lot of McDonald's and a lot of like, kind of a lot of meat and dairy. We were kind of like, my family's Italian. There was a lot of like just like heavy meat dishes. My dad was really steak and potatoes kind of guy. And so anyway, grew up eating a lot of heavy food. And over the years, basically, as I started to grow away from the mainstream program and grow toward my true self, I intuitively felt called to eat more and more plants. I became vegetarian, but I still was, for a long time was eating a lot of dairy, thinking I needed it for protein, which you don't. And still felt really heavy. I'm like, I'm a vegetarian. Why doesn't this feel good? And I felt called for a long time to stop eating eggs and dairy. About, I don't even know how long it was ago now, 7 years ago, we started eating vegan. We've talked about this. We recorded a podcast with me talking about this very topic about eating plants and how to change your diet to eat more plants or all plants. And, we started eating vegan and it like radically changed our lives. I will say, like, for me, I felt lighter. This is also sort of a minimalism thing, like I felt lighter. I felt stripped down to my core essence. I felt, just higher frequency, higher vibration. I do believe that plants are higher vibration food. And I feel more connected to a higher power when I'm eating plants. And it carries true. We're not perfect about this at all in terms of eating all plants. Even if you eat a lot of meat, we talk in the PDF about a lot of specific suggestions about how you can incorporate plants into your diet. It doesn't have to be whole hog, I was going to say, whole hog, going vegan, although that's great. And it's made huge changes in our lives. Eating more plants, making half your plate be green or be vegetables, like not eating meat for one meal a day, choosing to try to eat vegan one day a week. There's lots of ways that you can incorporate this into your life and see the benefits. There's lots of ways to try it out. But for us, it's been a phenomenal difference.
Yeah, for me, wow. I'm Teresa's much more dialed in on this than I am. I make more allowances here and there, though not a whole lot. But gosh, when we made this change a bunch of years ago, the energy in my body changed. I had so much more excitement. I was more open to the world. I felt better. I was in better shape. Everything changed about my body. I lost a little bit of weight. I wasn't overweight necessarily, but just this kind of odd extra weight I would carry around just vanished. And I slept better. I had better bowel movements, like you name it. It just all got better really, really quickly. And I think if there's any of these 8 that are going to have like a major, major leverage, it's going to be this one, particularly if you don't eat well. And so this is where this ebook is so beautiful, because we recommend all kinds of inputs in section 1 that will inspire this. Like if you go right now to Forks Over Knives on Twitter, they post every day before and after pictures, and it's just over and over and over again. The visual evidence is so startling. So it's and if you haven't watched that film, Forks Over Knives, it is the perfect primer to make this change to a whole foods plant-based diet. And that's what I'll say at the end of this, is that it's not about being vegan necessarily for us. I think it's really more about whole foods plant-based. So it's really about just eating more real food. Less cooked food, less processed food. There's all kinds of processed vegan food out there that's not that great for you. It's marginally better than non-vegan processed food. But if you eat like real food, like if your plate is composed of actual food items, not things that are comprised of food and chemicals and all kinds of God knows what, you're going to feel better, and your whole life is going to change. Everything about you will change. That this is the one. If you're eating just the standard American diet, if you make this change, it's going to be, I can't even begin to describe to you how massive it's going to be in your life.
I wanted to add something here. We're fairly healthy people, but the one thing I didn't say here is that, like, if you don't feel good, like if you actually have a lot of health problems, not to mention like at risk, like I am for like very chronic disease. I have a lot of cancer in my family. Steven's got heart disease in his family. Like, there's so much research and experience out there showing that if you start eating mostly plants, your risk for your health conditions, many of your health conditions could disappear, and so the same for your risk for chronic disease. Another thing we've mentioned in here is periodic fasting, which is something we have not done in the past but have been doing more and more, and that also is a way to give your body a chance to clean up and clear out.
Okay, number 6. Oh, one more thing about the plant-based diet. We'll link to in the show notes to a bunch of kind of supporting podcast episodes about various topics. The 2 featuring Dr. Pam Popper are just, she's so laser-like and just no nonsense. They'll change your life, no doubt about it. Okay, number 6, start an online business or just start writing online. Okay, so I don't even know where to start with this, but I'll just tell you a little bit about my story. 12, 13 years ago, I started doing this, and it's been so massive in my relationship to work and time and money. And I don't trade time for money anymore. I haven't done that in a while. And about 12 years ago, I had a job I wasn't that crazy about. I wasn't that excited about. And I would go home at night, and I would pull up my computer, and I would write blog posts about a specific topic that I had a specific amount of expertise in, namely dating and kind of helping other guys get better at dating. This is in New York City in 2004, and I started putting a lot of content out there. People started reading it. I suddenly realized, like, oh my goodness, I could give them more value. So I created an audio course. I created an ebook. I created a video course. I started coaching guys. And so not that long after I started doing that, was I able to leave that job and support myself through that business. And I'm telling you right now, if you're really locked into this trading time for money relationship, let me just tell you this. There are people out there with online businesses. I know a guy, his name is Eben Pagan. You can look this up. He has he started 8 different 8-figure online businesses. That's $10+ million a year. And he is helping thousands, tens of thousands of people every single day. Imagine the satisfaction. Forget about the money. Imagine the satisfaction of helping people create businesses, create means of exchanging value online to help other people. That's what's happening. This is such a big part of this movement. People breaking free of the old kind of quote unquote job mentality and tapping into something we'll talk more about in a second, their true calling, and sharing that information with others. Really, that's what the new earth is going to look like. People sharing what they're good at with others and being supported for that. That's all this is. That's all this is. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with necessarily making 8 figures online, but I say that just to blow your reality open. Like, wait a second. These online businesses are not just people getting by and, buying little apartments. They're like hugely lucrative. So that I say that is to set your bar at a certain place. Like, you can do this. There is something that you're good at or could become good at that you could share information about. And if you're not, if you're just interested in something, you could go right now to various affiliate consolidation sites and find probably half a dozen different kind of people who are really good at creating products, say about auto mechanics or installing plumbing in your house. You name it. Somebody's out there who's created products that sell, that make them a solid income that you can become an affiliate for and share those and create a list and make, in many cases, 50% of that sale back to you. So we cover that a lot in the ebook. It's something I'm super passionate about, as you can tell, because I've done it for a while, and I see so many people locked into this old mindset of I got to get a job, or I'm going to school so I can get a degree so that I can get a job. It's all unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. And just starting is so key. Start writing online. Create a little blog. Don't tell anybody about it and just start writing. And you'll see what I mean, how exciting and freeing it is. And then begin to share it. Something can then begin to happen.
Yeah, this is really, for me, I'm glad Stephen went first on this one because, he told me, when I met Stephen and especially after he moved in, he watched me struggle with my jobs and he kept telling me, like, why don't you just start writing online? Like, I've been so interested, especially in plant-based eating and the impact it can have on your life. I've been, I studied to be a yoga teacher. There's lots of things. I'm into meditation. Like, there's a lot of that I became passionate about, but didn't know where to do anything with it. I can't make money doing that is like the refrain of the things we're really passionate about sometimes. And he kept telling me just to start. And I would kind of do these false starts and then whatever, get back to my job. And really what it was is that as Stephen was talking, it was a belief system about money, that the way I had been taught money came was through a salary and a paycheck. I followed a very traditional educational path through university and law school. I really believed that story, and I didn't believe that money could come another way. And what I love about just this idea of starting an online business, just start writing online, just start, is it's offering yourself up to the universe in exchange with the universe. It's really about belief system. For me, I didn't believe that I could make money that way, so I never got started, so I never even tried until we did Ownstream. And I basically had to wear myself down to the bottom on my jobs and just get miserable. There was a time when I was really passionate about my career. Like I got into the field I was in social justice because I really cared about young people in prison. It's something that I really wanted to do, and I really wanted to help young people in prison. And that is a theme in my life. Like I want to help people get out of bondage, basically. The bondage of self is what it is. And but I just over the years just became unhappy in my job, and I couldn't see a way out, and it's just amazing because what the truth is that there's infinite possibility of creation in the world. It's all a belief that you can't make money that way. Our belief now is that if you're following your excitement and your calling and you're creating, that will just take care of itself. Abundance is there and it will take care of itself. So as Stephen said, like people, online, there are a number of online businesses, people with online businesses making millions of dollars a year. And it's so possible. It's right there. So, my first experience with it has been Ownstream, and it's just been fantastic. And it just flows, and it's easy, and it's exciting, and that is not how I felt anymore in my jobs. So, let's see. Number 7, invest a few bucks into Bitcoin. So this is a perfect transition topic. Is that, this is about money exchange with the universe, really. Again, we have these old ideas about how we can get money. And like I said, like I had very standard ideas until about a year ago, when I quit my last job, very standard programmed ideas about how you make money. And it's really about salary, and it's really usually about getting by with salary. I remember when I started to make 6 figures in my job, I thought I had made it, and that came from an old story. And I also just like never could see beyond that either. I was like, if I'm making, oh my God, I'm making $120,000, $150,000 a year. I thought I'd made it, and really like Bitcoin now has come into the universe, and it's like, it's changing all of our possibilities around this in a very tangible way. Again, it really comes down to belief about exchange with the universe and the possibility of abundance. But Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have entered the picture, just kind of rocking our world about what wealth and possibility is. Do you want to talk more about what Bitcoin is? We've covered this on a number of podcasts. But basically, that cryptocurrencies are coming, and they're here, and they're going to replace paper currency. It's happening very slowly right now, but there's a potential within a short number of years for the cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin being the main one out there, to skyrocket in terms of their value, and just creating, intergenerational wealth like in a very short amount of time. So, we have invested some money into Bitcoin, and it feels really good. It feels like, it feels like putting in exchange with the universe to create wealth in a totally different way from the old job model.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this around April 2018, when we're releasing this, cryptocurrencies are currently on sale. And boy, it's a great time to buy some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some of the other main cryptocurrencies. But basically, if you look at how fiat currency, which is the paper money, basically is set up, it's so completely embedded in the system that's falling apart. And what we found was once we invested a little bit, like it may seem totally overwhelming. What is this cryptocurrency thing? And if you have questions like that, check out our conversation with Stephen Michaels, which was episode 50. Just a few weeks back. We'll link to that in the show notes, but he's the Bitcoin investor, and that's his website, that is. And our conversation with him about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, is so clear. He's so clear. So he answers, I'm sure, many of the questions people who are unfamiliar with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies would have. He handles those. Didi Taihutu, which was a few weeks before that, he and his family sold everything they had, mainly because they were interested in the earlier topic about minimalism and just becoming free. And they had this, windfall of money. What do we do with it? They invested it into cryptocurrencies, and now they're the Bitcoin family. So we've talked to the Bitcoin family and the Bitcoin investor. 2 great resources for you if you're interested in this. But invest a little bit of it into it. Start reading, start learning. It'll take on a life of its own. It's very clear to us, at least, that this whole currency exchange we're in the midst of it. More and more businesses are taking cryptocurrencies, and cryptocurrencies are basically just a much better way of exchanging value that aren't aligned with governments that are largely corrupt or corruptible. They're not aligned with, kind of bizarre boundaries that we call, country borders. There's really no need anymore in this kind of world economy, particularly through the technology that we have now, the internet, to have dollars and euros and pesos and colones, as we just experienced in Costa Rica. They seem sort of outdated, and there's a reason for that, and that is because they are outdated. There's a handful of other reasons why many people, including Theresa and I, feel like that system is on the way out and that now is a really good time to consider investing in cryptocurrencies. The main one being Bitcoin. The reason Bitcoin is probably it's considered digital gold, primarily because if you want to buy another cryptocurrency, you got to do so through Bitcoin in most cases. There's a few exchanges out there where you can trade dollars for cryptocurrencies, but in most cases, Bitcoin, if you have, say, a Bitcoin, you can buy 3 or 4 Ethereum with that, or a handful of Monero, or what have you. So Bitcoin is digital gold primarily because most of the other cryptocurrencies are bought and sold using Bitcoin.
And the last thing I'll say on this is that we are not financial advisors. We're just, a couple of people who have invested money in Bitcoin and who also are, trying to help you find a more abundant relationship with money. And that starts by exchanging with the universe in that way. But as Stephen said, Steve Michaels' episode of our podcast is a great one. He's an expert on this topic, and we've included a lot more resources in the ebook.
Last but not least, and certainly not least, maybe the most important thing you can do today is follow your excitement and find your true calling in life. And we will link to some really, really exceptional resources. We wrote an article all about this that can be found at ownstream.co/calling. But in my view, I'll speak for myself, when I began to really connect with my calling years ago, I really thought it was about helping guys with dating, become free of all this toxicity around dating and desiring women and approaching women and being thoughtful about dating and owning your power as a man, etc. This was like stuff I was teaching a decade ago, but I really thought that was it. And you know what? At that time, it was my calling, and it helped me do all sorts of exciting things. I created so much from that calling. But once I get aligned with my calling, most often I feel an urge to express that. I feel an urge to share that. I feel an urge to help others, to serve others in that way. And my calling now is that people know that they are the one infinite creator. They are God. You are creating your life. You're not a victim. You're not a victim of it. And so Ownstream is this perfect expression of our calling, which are very similar. Theresa and I, our callings are very, very similar. And so most of what we talk about on the show and the people we interview and all the content we create is all about creating a life of unimaginable possibility for yourselves. And so, living aligned with that comes with all sorts of magic, so, things that we would call magic if we kind of look at life from the pure cause and effect standpoint, which is so based in the old reality. But nowadays, we can see every day, we get aligned and all this wonderful stuff just happens. It just sort of happens. All these coincidences, all these wonderful directions, all these magnificent people we meet, all these wonderful scenarios that just sort of create themselves that we find ourselves in that show us the next step across the pond. We just got back from Costa Rica for 2 months, and it was just that over and over and over and over again. So many amazing coincidences and directions and chance encounters, you name it, serendipities. It was just amazing. And so really, life can be boiled down to find your calling, align with that, And whatever you're inspired to do from that place, do it. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, which if you're really aligned with your calling, I don't think you could be inclined to hurt somebody else. But I say that as an asterisk. Just as a safeguard, I guess. But, once you're aligned with your calling, to me, I'm so excited. I'm inspired. I want to serve. I want to help. I can't help myself but create and share the good news. And that's what it's about. And really, that's all you have to do in many ways. It's really about just learning how to align and learning how to live in alignment. And that's an art. That's really an art. For me, that's a total art. Like, I have not mastered that. It's not like I kind of cruise through my day aligned, just as Theresa. But more and more every day, I am aligned. And what's created as a result of that is just magnificent. It's magnificent. So this is the most important thing. We save it for last because we want to kind of warm you up. But to me, nothing compares to this, unless you're eating the standard American diet. And I have to sort of protect what I said earlier because I'm so excited by this content. But if you're eating the standard American diet and you start eating plant-based, you're going to feel really good, or at least a lot better really fast. That's my view, at least. But spiritually speaking, long-term, big picture, nothing's as important as finding your calling, living your excitement, and allowing that to be your compass through life.
Yeah, I think this one works really together with all the others. I like the bookends of this Exit the Matrix because they really kind of inform the others. Like, sometimes it's hard when you've been following a program told by someone else your whole life to even find your excitement. That was the case for me. Mm-hmm. I would tell Stephen, I don't know what I want to do. Like, from something as simple as what to order for a meal, honestly, to like, what's my calling in life? It took me a long time. And so it can be easier to start with some of the other things because they're very concrete. And typically when you do that, it leads to your excitement. If you can follow your excitement, it often leads to those things too. So they're very reciprocal. Most of the people I know who are following their calling and their excitement, a lot of those other things are part of their life or become part of their life as they're doing that, and vice versa. If you start to do those things, you may be more likely to find your excitement. So this is like, as Stephen said, this is the most important fundamental paradigm shift, which for me was a really challenging one. I used to think that you're supposed to, I was taught, you work hard in life, you buckle down, you get things done, pull up your bootstraps, like grind through it and get it done. Like, that's what my days in law school were like grind through it and get it done. I didn't think that I was supposed to be happy, that I was supposed to love what I do. And really, like, this is the most fundamental shift that changes everything, which is I am supposed to feel alive and excited about what I do. I'm supposed to feel joy. My natural state is feeling good. That was a huge one for me. That is not what we're taught, is not what I was taught. It really was like getting through stuff, if I was feeling bad, I just kind of need to get through it. Like, no, we are meant to be joyous. We're meant to be alive and free and excited about what we're doing. And that excitement is the guidepost to how we intended to live our life. That's really the truth. And so therefore, like, it is the only thing you need is your excitement, is your joy. What excites you on a daily basis? That might be what you want to create. It may be like, I want to spend today reading. I want to spend today reading the newspaper, like, to edit what I said earlier. If you're really excited about the news, like, listen to the news. That wasn't the case for me. It made me feel bad, So whatever you're really excited about is what you're supposed to be doing. And usually it is like your gift to the world. Usually you have some creation within you that you are intended. I believe everybody, has a gift that they are meant to give to the world, has a reason for being here. And the guide to that gift is your excitement. Once I accepted that, it transformed my entire life. I no longer had to hold on to the jobs that I thought I was supposed to be doing. Some of the routines that I was doing, it fundamentally allowed me to transform my life in alignment with my true self, the way I've always wanted to be, who I always wanted to be. I just let go of the stories, and it's an ongoing process. I'm still doing this. But as I have accepted that the truth of my existence is my joy and my excitement, and that's the most important thing, it's an amazing transformative power in your life. You don't have to be anything for anyone else. You just need to be yourself. It's amazing. So huge. And we have some tips for how to get started with that in the ebook. So those are the 8.
Those are the 8. If you want to download this PDF, this ebook, it's a beautiful document. We've put a lot of energy into it. We had designers help us. Like, it's really been kind of amazing to create this. If you want to get yours, go to ownstream.co/exit. That's ownstream.co/exit. You'll be taken to a really simple download page. Put your email and phone number in there. We'll send it, or not your phone number. Not your phone number. No one calls anybody these days anyway. We just text. But no, put your email and your first name in there, and we'll send you the Exit the Matrix PDF ebook. And then you'll also be subscribed to our newsletter, News for a New Earth, which, like I said, will be coming out a couple times a month. Very, very sporadic. Not sporadically, but we're not going to be hammering people with email at all. So
when it's relevant.
When it's relevant, that's right. And it'll all be information and content in alignment with this episode, with the Ownstream, with our mission. It should really inspire you and excite you and compel you forward. That is our aim. So you'll get Exit the Matrix, the ebook, and you'll be subscribed. We're so excited to share this with you. If you want to see the show notes for this episode, they'll be at ownstream.co/exit the matrix. We'll link to all kinds of podcasts that we've referred to in this, and we'll certainly link to the download page for the ebook as well. A couple of other quick reminders as we wrap up. Webinar series will be starting at the end of April. I think this month we'll talk about points 1 and 2 that we just covered, namely about the inputs and the meditation practice. That's a lot to cover in a webinar, and you'll be able to kind of interface, interact with us, ask questions, or raise your own valuable points. So we're excited to start that. Again, it's just another way for us to interact with you, establish connection. So please look for that. That'll probably be mostly talked about on our Facebook page and within our Facebook community. Just go to Ownstream and go to Facebook and type in Ownstream. We have a really strong community of people, about 250 really, really cool people in our Ownstream community as of this date, which for us is a good amount of people. Please join us there. It's a great place. It's a great place to interact with other like-minded beings, share challenges, triumphs, whatever, and we post in there regularly too. Our Facebook page is really a place where we share a lot of inspiring content. We'll also keep people posted about relevant media that we're creating, namely the podcast and certainly the webinar series. So check us out on Facebook for more on the webinar. We'll keep you posted there on that. And what else? We have a YouTube channel. Go to ownstream.co/YouTube. I've been posting a lot of content there. We're going to be doing a lot of kind of how-to type videos where we kind of share specific ways that we've kind of hacked the old mainstream system and created something new and that's really working well for us. We post on Instagram very much about our personal journey. We hope you'll join us there. But mainly go to ownstream.co/exit. And download this wonderful ebook that we've just talked a lot about, and then join us in the Facebook community and tell us about your journey with these topics. That would be wonderful to hear what you have to say, how you're feeling, how you're doing. Help us help you. We want to help people kind of carve their own path. There's literally nothing that gives us more joy than that, maybe other than being with our daughter, who's like, spectacular every second. So you'll be in second place, but that's a good place to be. But so join us there. Talk about your various triumphs, your challenges, what you're working on. And last but not least, Patreon. Check us out there, patreon.com/Ownstream. Support us in the creation of this glorious show, the Ownstream Podcast. Did I leave anything out?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thanks for joining us this week. We will be back next week with more. Lots of love from sunny Southern California, and we hope you'll check out our ebook, Exit the Matrix. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Ownstream Podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter @Ownstream and Instagram @own_stream.